Alright, I don't even know where to begin. This has to be one of the best chapters I've read in the manga so far. I just have to get that out of the way now. And Buddha has just now become my favorite character in the whole story because I have no other way to say it. I mean, dude, the amount of complexity and parallels that I didn't even know were being built on since way early back during like Shiva versus Raiden, I think in like chapter 32 or 33. I mean, I know it's around there when we first saw a glimpse of who Buddha is and his personality, but man, this chapter was just way too good. It's just too good, and I already know for a fact I'm going to be doing a part 2 for this chapter review because there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to cover everything here. So just to give you guys a heads up for this video, I'm just going to be only talking about the fight and nothing about the backstory. I'm going to save the backstory talk for a part 2 of this chapter review because I think it deserves it. So make sure you guys, like and subscribe for that. I'm going to definitely make sure I try to post that sometime later today, if not tomorrow. But for now, I just want to cover the fight because it is a lot to discuss. So yeah, let's get into it. So the chapter begins with the fight, and we come to find out that Buddha's staff, the Sixth Realm staff, is capable of changing shape based on his emotions. And Brunhild does like a funny pose where she breaks it down using Buddhist terminology, and even when it changes form from the shield to, I guess, what looks like a spiked club, the name of the weapon it goes into is called Nirvana, and there's apparently 6 forms in total it changes between, I would assume, based on the 6 realms. And already there's a lot of interesting points to mention because it seems like the weapons each have their own consciousness, I think, right? Maybe I'm just interpreting this wrong, but the way Buddha actually talked to the club when he said, oh, it's you, it just makes me guess that these weapons each are probably conscious or sentient, and if I'm right, maybe it could be the guardians that Brunhild mentioned, because from her explanation, it looked like each of the 6 realms are guarded by 6 distinct guardians. And this is where it gets really interesting, because if the staff changes form based on his emotions, then that means there is no weapon of choice here that Buddha could choose from. Almost like he's being forced by the staff to fight according to his emotions. And normally this sounds like a bad thing, except I don't think it is actually all that bad, because to be fair, even Zero calls him out in this chapter when he tells him stop acting cool and collected, meaning I think Buddha would be the last person to let his emotions drive him in the wrong direction. And if this is the case, then this just makes Buddha all the more dangerous, because it implies there is some separate guardian from the 6 realms working in Buddha's best interest at any given moment. And let me just stop for a second here, because the staff changes form only after Zero's misery cleaver changes. And this is critical to say because had the cleaver not changed, then I think it's fair to assume Buddha would have continued to fight with the shield regardless. So in other words, it's almost like the staff changed as a response to Zero's change in weapon. And this is where I think it might get complicated, because this entire time it looked like Buddha was just putting on a front, acting like he didn't care, and was even ready to challenge Zeus. But now that there's actual proof that is telling us his emotions determine whatever weapon that he's using, then this means Buddha is emotionally invested in this fight. Now, I don't know how much of an investment this is, but at the very least, it's obvious that it's definitely not on Zero's level, where his anger and misery are, at like extreme levels of emotional investment, so much so that it's enough to change the form of his weapon out of his own demand, out of his own free will, because when Zero's weapon changes, it's actually because, he's choosing it to. And this is the irony that I think people might miss here, that Buddha's weapon that is changing form is completely based on his emotions, meaning he has no say in the matter on what form it takes. In other words, it makes his own free will irrelevant at that point. And on the flip side, there's Zero, who can most likely change his weapon to whatever he wants. He can even change the size of it, like how we saw in the last chapter. And this is probably what Buddha meant by when he said, isn't that cheating, when he saw how big Zero's weapon got, because unlike Zero, Buddha has no control over his weapon of choice, let alone control the size of it during mid-fight. And back to what I was saying about Buddha being emotionally invested, I think this is important because it is on the contrary to who we thought Buddha was. It's not that I believe Buddha is now, suddenly caring for Zero out of pity or even scared of him, but it's that Buddha stays, calm and cool and collected in literally every circumstance. Now, this is just my guess, but I think it's fair to say when Buddha saw Zero's weapon change shape, I think it actually either scared or intimidated Buddha. And this would explain why the staff changes only after Zero's weapon changes first, meaning the staff saw a change in Buddha's emotion, but again, because Buddha's always, calm and collected, I think he's not only capable, of dealing with unhappiness, but even capable of solving his own fear or sadness or grief, whatever the emotion is. The staff is able to detect it and change to whatever suits Buddha's, best interest at any any given time. So for example, if the weapon that Zero's weapon changed into caused Buddha to feel intimidated, then it would be because of that intimidation that the staff changed into something that could give him, you know, I guess confidence or give him courage to counter it, seeing as how it's all emotionally based. And because it went from a shield to a spiked club, then I think it's either intimidation or fear. It has to be either of the two, because the switch goes from a shield, a defensive weapon, to just instantly offensive when it switches to the club, and you know, these are two drastically different weapons. Now, for anyone who disagrees with me or doubts that Buddha felt any fear or intimidation from Zero when he changes his weapon, then I have to say I could almost agree, but the reason why I don't is because Buddha, for the majority of the beginning of the fight, was fighting with just the staff at its most basic form, right? And now all of a sudden, without hesitation, it changes instantly from one weapon to the next. So it's without a doubt that there was some emotional reaction that the staff noticed that made it switch. And I think what also proves this is when we saw Buddha say the chant and do the whole transformation sequence with it in the last chapter, but now in this chapter we don't get that, and the weapon changes without Buddha's command. Even when he still had the shield, he literally tells Zero he made him break a sweat, so it's clear that Buddha got nervous when he saw the misery cleaver jump in size. And I think this line really sums up what I'm trying to say best, when we see Buddha admit to getting anxious, and yet Zero just accuses him of acting all cool and, you know, relaxed, except it was actually just a mix of both emotions, where the cause is the anxiety of how huge Zero's weapon got, and the effect is the confidence he had to then allow him to jump and push it back with the shield head on. And I like that we're getting some Buddha trash talk here too. I was just kind of feeling the dialogue was getting pretty stale, but seeing Buddha throw in some clever, you know, statements just reminds me of round 4, like how Jack always said something clever to, you know, tempt Heracles, and Heracles would just take it too seriously. And I know I said I would talk about Buddha's backstory in another video I'll be posting soon as part 2 to this review, but then at the end of the chapter it's revealed Buddha actually hates the gods, and this is his reason for fighting. Now, hate is an extremely specific word because it's a really strong emotion, and it's interesting seeing the parallel, you know, being made here between Zero, who's literally thriving off hate, versus Buddha, who tempers it and uses it to motivate him in his own way. And what's interesting about this whole chapter is when we see Buddha and Zero fight, you have to wonder how his eyes are affecting any part of this fight whatsoever, since he could literally see into the future. Personally, I think it just complicates things for me more than I need it to, but at the very least, I think with that in mind and the damage potential of his staff, Buddha could very well be one of the most powerful characters in the story, hands down. But when I start thinking about it that way, I can't help but think Buddha is just showing, I don't know, mercy on Zero maybe? Because it just seems like everything is in Buddha's favor right now, and especially since we've already gotten both the backstories for Buddha and Zero, I wouldn't be surprised if Buddha ends up winning this, and this ends up being one of the shortest fights in the manga. That's a really curious thought I've been having after reading this chapter. And because I think we're getting 2 chapters next month, I actually wonder if round 6 is gonna end next month, because it looks like if we do get chapters 48 and 49 all at once in June, then it could mean volume 11 and 12 will be complete by that point, just going based off each volume having 4 chapters ever since I think volume 5 came out. And I'm not complaining, I think the round has been amazing so far. It's just I'm curious for how much longer it could last, since we've already covered both backstories, and it just looks so obvious Buddha is gonna win based on how the fight's been going. And I don't want to say Zero has no chance at all. I think we could even get another 4 chapters of round 6 to make it for volume 13, but because I'm like 99% sure we're getting 2 chapters next month, that is most likely going to go into volume 12, I'm just really curious as to how this is all going to play out. But if I'm wrong about all this, I totally don't care at all. I just think the pace has been really different in comparison to all the previous fights, and in a good way, but I'm totally down for another volume of chapters for round 6. I have no complaints there whatsoever. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for me. Let me know how you guys feel about the chapter, because damn, this was just insanely good. It's a straight 10 out of 10 for me. And I didn't even cover Ares and Hermes. I think their little interactions stuck out, you know, just for laughs, because you could just kind of expect them to commentate, but it was just pretty goofy to see it this time around. And again, I will be doing a part 2 to this review where I go in depth on Buddha's backstory. I'm just splitting videos here to save time here is all. So please make sure you like and subscribe to be there for part 2. I'd greatly appreciate it. Let me know how you all felt about the chapter, and if you're interested in more Record or Ragnarok content, please subscribe if you're down. This whole channel is about it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching guys. Have a great day.